that is it, ladies and gents. That is how to get to your first $10,000. $10,000 is the golden number that you constantly see floating all across social media. Here's how to make $10,000 with dropshipping. Here's how to make it with Amazon FBA. Here's how to make it with Etsy. There's so many methods out there of how to make $10,000, and it's used so much to the extent where it's actually lost the majority of its meaning. $10,000 doesn't have as much of a punch as what $10,000 actually is, and it's only made so much worse by all these thousands of videos that you'll see over YouTube and social media of how to make your first $10,000 online with this amazing business model. And even worse, the methods out there of how to make your first $10,000 online are all selling you a pipe dream. It's never actually how to make it step by step. It's buy my course and therefore you'll make me money and you'll just learn how I did it myself, which just makes it hard to find a clear and concise guide with no bias towards some specific business model or some specific technique. You just want something that flat out lines it out, basically scientifically, right? And I'm using dollars here just because it's a universal currency, not because you have to be in US to do it. It's just because it makes sense to everyone. But we're going to go from your first $100 to your first $1,000 to your first $5,000 to the big 10K. But how do you know if this video is for you? Do you have to have a certain background? Do you have to have a certain IQ or be from a certain nationality? Not at all. You don't even have to be a specific age. All you need is to have a certain level of maturity so you can actually understand what I'm telling you. So if you can listen, you can take notes, you can understand, then you'll be absolutely fine. And this video will slightly be on the longer side because I have a lot of information to go through in terms of breaking down how to make $10,000, because it's not one of those join my course and you make $10,000. It is breaking it down step by step how it works. And just one last note, to get the most out of this video, don't just sit back and watch it passively. Don't just let your eyes kind of glare through the video and just make like no attempt to actually take any actionable steps off it. Get a piece of paper, write down the notes that you gain from the video. So let's start off with making your first $100 from the very ground up. Now, making your first $100 is probably the simplest and the easiest one to do out of the ones that we're going to go through because you can make $100 on your birthday. You can make it from washing a couple cars and getting lucky with a tip. There are countless ways to make $100. You've probably made $100 before, you just haven't systematically looked at it that way. But for those of you that are working from the very ground up, let's go through how to make your first $100. And this bit is exciting because we are talking about the fundamentals of making money here. And we're going to go for 3 different things that you can do. Number 1, freelance jobs. Number 2, miscellaneous jobs. And number 3, side hustle type jobs. Now, freelance jobs can be anything. It's very, very simple. The idea is that you are a singular person basically going and carrying out tasks for other people in exchange for money. So here you are trading your time for money. And a very easy way to be a freelancer is to register yourself on somewhere like Upwork, for example, or Fiverr, right? That works too. And basically just pick a skill, pick any kind of skill. For me, I started off using this method exactly, doing social media management. So pick a skill, register yourself on these platforms and basically look for work. And this is by far the easiest way to not only make your first $100, but your first couple hundred and pushing into the thousands, because a freelance job is exponentially scalable. Some people do this as their full-time career. And there is more to the freelance side of things. So if you do want to jump down that rabbit hole, I recommend you just search up how to get started on Upwork for beginners or something along those lines. So to recap, pick a skill that either you already know or you want to learn. This can be from the very basics because you don't need to be very good at a skill to make $100 off it. And then register yourself on some kind of platform where you can find people that need that skill fulfilling. Done. Now the second way, side hustle jobs, right? And these are fantastic just because of how genuinely easy they are. It doesn't require you to be anyone special. It doesn't require you to have any specific skills. The idea of a side hustle job is something that you can do repetitively that doesn't take you long to do. And essentially you are just trading your time in exchange for money, right? Maybe someone needs a task doing, so you do it. And the reason I say it's repetitive is because for it to be a side hustle, it means that it has to have some kind of longevity to it. So the idea of this is like washing cars. It could be babysitting. It could be dog walking, right? Something that you can do over and over again, but it doesn't require many skills. It just requires, just basic like maturity, right? Something you can just do on the weekend. Because like I said, here you are essentially trading out your time to save someone else time, right? And the more creative you are with your side hustle, the better it will go, right? What I would suggest you do is go around to your family and friends and ask what they need doing on a regular basis. It could be as simple as mowing the lawn, right? Or like watering some plants, something that you can just make a tiny bit of cash off consistently. And the only difference between side hustle jobs and miscellaneous jobs is that miscellaneous jobs are things that are more one-off. I wouldn't say it's as good as side hustle jobs because it isn't repetitive, but it's the idea of like going around to your grandparents' house and like helping them clean out their shed for like £50 or $50 or whatever it is, right? And although it's not very scalable, once you get into the habit of doing miscellaneous jobs for different people, you can ask more people. You can say, is there anything you need doing that I can do for you that I can get a bit of money for, right? Because assuming you're trying to make your first $100, you're typically either quite young or you have such little experience. So to conclude the path of making your first $100, you can try try a matter of endless things, but 3 things I would focus on are freelance jobs, side hustle jobs, or miscellaneous jobs. Now we move into the field of trying to make your first $1,000. Now this is like one level up from the first $100, but the only difference is that you actually have to provide value to people's lives in exchange for them to pay you that much money. There's 2 ways you can do it. Either do the $100 job repetitively to make $1,000, or provide more value to people's lives for $1,000. And this is where it gets exciting. So this is where I recommend you get out your paper and pen and you start writing bits down. So the first step is that you need some kind of skill of value, and this is going to be a repetitive theme throughout the rest of this video. So pick a skill of value. Now it's not going to be as easy as just picking one out of thin air, and we'll go through that a bit more later on. But the idea is to pick a skill of value and then you sell that skill of value in exchange for money. But what skill do you pick is the question. There's a few different approaches that you can take with this. First one is you can look up highly valuable skills or high income skills that you get paid money for, and you'll come across things such as marketing, sales, copywriting, communication, web design, right? And like a whole other load of things that fall into that category. And although it's not wrong, it is pretty basic, because when it comes to having a high value skill like marketing, you don't have a very beginner level understanding of marketing. You need something quite experienced to make a lot of money off it. But the reason I say it's high value or high income is because there's a lot of scalability in it. You can be marketing for, I don't know, a nice origami bird that you created, or you can be marketing for $1 billion brand. So as you can see, it's the same skill but infinitely scalable. Now the thing that will do you wonders here when it actually comes to picking the perfect skill for you is look into what's known as skill stacking. Essentially the idea of finding skills that complement each other and like grouping them together in a way. And I would go on and explain what skill stacking is, but it's a whole new video on itself. So if you want me to make a video on it, let me know. In the meantime, I'll leave a TikTok link down below where I made a video on skill stacking and you can understand it in like 20-30 seconds, or I'll leave an article link better off so you can watch that. And skill stacking should help provide some clarity on what actually makes skills that you have more valuable, and therefore you can exchange it in return for more money. But you will still have the question of what skills do I choose? What skills do I stack together? And there's really 3 things that I would look at when you're actually picking a skill that you want to use. Number 1 is there something that you know a little something about, which is going to give you a head start in terms of actually doing that skill. Number 2, is there a skill that you're just genuinely good at? You know, do you like to write a lot? Are you a very good writer? Maybe you do copywriting, that kind of idea. Or number 3, is there a skill that you see a lot of potential in? You think this skill was going to blow up, or it's going to be in a lot of demand. Or ideally, you would pick a skill that fits into all 3 categories, right? But if you're starting off from nothing and from a blank piece of paper, pick one of those 3 or as many of those 3 as possible and go from there. And no one is going to pick the skill for you, so it actually means you have to figure it out on your own. I could give you a list of 250 skills, but you will be as lost as if I didn't tell you those 250 skills in the first place. You do have to find it on your own. Now you have to find people that actually need your skills. So now you have a skill, and a skill fundamentally solves some kind of problem. So now you've got to find people that have those problems that your skill solves, right? And there are countless ways to go about actually finding people that need your skills, but there are 3 fundamental ways that you can get people to pay money for your skills. Number 1, outreach. This is going out and finding people, reaching out, sending cold messages, cold calls, try and find people that need your skills. Number 2 is putting yourself on marketplaces. So similar to things like Upwork or Fiverr, you're putting yourself out there and then people are going to see you because you are putting yourself, making a presence. And number 3 is basically making a name for yourself, attention around yourself, or in other words, building an audience, right? Creating an audience and therefore attracting your ideal customer through the audience you have created. And the great thing here is that you could do all 3 if you wanted to. You could list yourself on Upwork, list yourself on Fiverr, send outreach messages to people daily, and also create a personal brand talking about the skill that you're good at, and therefore people will come to you. Even better, each method of finding customers or clients for your skill has its own rabbit hole. So search up on YouTube, you're going to find thousands of videos. Search up on YouTube how to get good at Upwork or make a profile on Upwork, or search up on YouTube how to start building, you know, a personal brand or creating an audience, that kind of thing. And you'll find loads of information on each individual one. Or even consider picking up a book like $100 Million Leads by Alex Hormozi that will pretty much teach you everything you need to know. It's also very important to remember that at this stage of trying to make money, you should really adopt the mindset of throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks, because you are not going to be perfect when starting out. You are not going to pick a skill, be amazing at that skill and make thousands and thousands, millions of dollars just because you picked a skill. You will have to keep trying stuff and keep failing until stuff starts to work. That is the whole process that you have to go through, because nothing is going to be perfect. And even the people that are very good at the skills that they do don't have everything figured out. There are like loads of holes in their methods currently. And remember that you can watch as many videos as you want, you can listen to as many podcasts as you want, until you start taking action yourself to actually get better at the skills, get better at the service and stuff like that, you're going to go nowhere. So start taking action like as soon as possible. Start throwing shit at the wall and stuff will start to stick over time. So to conclude the path to your first $1,000, develop a skill of value using the different principles that I previously explained. See how you can stack these skills to increase their value. Look into skill stacking, the article that I'll link below. Go find the people that have the problem that you're trying to solve, and finally go at it with the right mindset. That's your conclusion for trying to make your first $1,000. And now we move on to making your first first $5,000. Now, 5K is obviously much more considerable than 1K and $100, and there's two ways that you can go about hitting it. You either rinse and repeat what got you to your first $1,000, or you work on two different things. This is your skills and your offer. And typically it's actually a mixture of both. Instead of just rinse and repeating the thing that got you to 1K and hoping that it gets better over time, I would actually work on increasing your offer and your skills around the thing that got you to 1K in the first place. Because here we are slowly starting to focus on working smart rather than working hard, right? So let's start off with your offer. Now, everything you have ever bought has an offer attached to it. A lot of the time you don't even realize that you are being offered something. For example, with McDonald's, they don't have to tell you what their offer is every single time you go to buy something from them, but you know that it's cheap fast food, right? So your offer needs to consist of a few components. Number one, what is in it for them? What is in it for the person that's actually buying the thing that you're selling? Number two, how much is it going to cost them? Number three, how much is it going to cost them in terms of time and energy that they have to put into it? And number four, how long is it going to take them before they can redeem the results of the offer? And those components of what makes a perfect offer is taught by Alex Hormozi, in which he put in his book $100 Million Offers, which makes sense, and I'd highly recommend you read that. And if you want to understand how to make the perfect no-brainer offer, I'll link his video down below where he talks about how to make the perfect offer, but watch it after you finish off this video. And when creating your offer, know that it's important and it's okay to spend a lot of time on refining it, right? Your offer is the first thing that people are going to see when you present your product or your service to them. Therefore, it needs to be crisp, it needs to be sharp, and include all the attributes that makes them want to buy it. So give it the time and the energy that it deserves. Now, the next thing you need to do is you need to make sure that your offer and your skills that you're offering to somebody is actually worth more than the money that they're paying you to have them, if that makes sense. And what I mean by that is that a lot of people will go out the gate, and it's a thing I did myself, of going to a local restaurant in your area and trying to offer them social media management for like $400 a month, right? And this can work very well, but typically this service is very, very short-lived because it's very hard for a company to actually get a tangible result on you posting on Instagram for them. Therefore, your skills and your offer, which is basically your service, needs to give them more value than they're paying in return, which will make them want to pay for the service longer. Which essentially, in other words, just means you need to over-deliver or create your skills and your service that makes it extremely, extremely valuable. And something that's worth noting is that it's much easier to keep one client on retainer for multiple months as per to trying to get a new client every single month, because your skills don't overly value how much they're paying for them. An example for this is, let's say you run an SEO agency, right? And you go to companies and you basically help them increase their traffic from their website. And you, running the SEO agency, go to an e-commerce company making, let's say, $50,000 a month, right? Amazing stuff. And you tell them that you can give them a 20% increase in their bottom line conversions, which is basically you saying, I can make you an extra $10,000 a month from the $50,000 you're already pulling in. But the catch is that you get to keep 20% of what you make them, which basically means you'll be making them $60,000 a month and you'll be keeping $2,000. Obviously, on paper, that is very, very clear that what you're providing is worth much more than what they're paying you. And that's just an example of how you can do exactly that. And as much as getting to $5,000 is about increasing your skills and your offer, it's also about increasing your client acquisition system, right? So that goes with if you're trying to sell something to consumers or you're trying to sell like a service to businesses, the same thing. How are you going to get more people to buy your product or service? And there's no perfect answer that I can just give you for this, as all businesses are different, but what I would say is look back to what made you your first $1,000 and see what actually worked that you can then go in tenfold on. You kind of got to treat your first $1,000 as like your testing stage. You see what worked, you see what didn't, and you see what you can put more pressure on to increase and deliver you a better result. It's kind of like the idea of the 80-20 principle, where 20% of the work is actually producing 80% of the results. With your client acquisition systems, when you actually look into it and dive deep, you'll realize that it's only 20% of the things that you're doing that are producing 80% of the results. The rest just isn't helping you at all. So once you figure out what that 20% is, that's when you can just massively increase your actual input into that thing. I know this sounds like gibberish, but trust me, watch it back a few times and you'll understand. And it's also important here to innovate, because what got you to $1,000 won't get you to $5,000. That's why we're talking about it in sections, in stages, because at each stage you have to do something different. Unless you just want to go down the route of cavemen and sticks and just keep repeating what got you to your first $100 in hopes that you'll get to $10,000 sometime soon. So in summary, to get to your first $5,000, this is what you need to do. Improve your offer, continue to develop your skills, offer more value than you're receiving in return, do more of what worked, adapt and innovate consistently, and that, without a shadow of a doubt, will get you to your first $5,000. Congrats. Now we move on to the big 10K. So the biggest thing that's going to get you from your first $5,000 to your first $10,000 is systems. And let me explain why and how it works. Listen, you are not superhuman and you can't do everything yourself. And especially at the stage when you're creeping towards your first $10,000, it is very hard to do this completely solo, completely alone, without system. And that's where the idea of delegation comes, because there's going to be a bottleneck that's stopping you getting to your first $10,000. And it's not going to be your skills, it's not going to be your offers, because at this point they should be pretty sharp. It's going to be the ceiling. What's meant by that is that you have to put yourself in an environment and give yourself the resources that's going to enable you to get to that first $10,000. What I mean by that is that if you're running an SMMA on your own, completely solo, it's going to be very difficult for you to take on more clients than you're currently taking on, assuming you're taking on a fair few, to actually get you to that first $10,000, because the more clients you take on, the less kind of quality work you can give each client, and therefore you need to kind of expand laterally and build out a team around you. Not even necessarily build out a team, but outsource some of your work to other people that are good at doing the same work. Because although we're talking about making money here, you will have such a shit quality of life if you are taking on so much work to the point where it doesn't even become enjoyable anymore. And that's where systems are going to help you, my friend. And the system you need will completely depend on your business. There's no point me just telling you use this software because it's the best. But the important idea that you need to understand here is that systems is what is going to allow you to detach your time from the money that you're making. In order to make your first $10,000 in a month, let's say, if you're being paid exclusively on your skills and your time, you would need to make $14 an hour, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and 30 days a month to make 10K, which doesn't take a genius to realize that that is not physically possible. Building out systems is what will allow you to save 3 hours of your time here, 2 hours of your time here, 5 hours of your time here, so that you can actually spend your time where it is best well spent. So how do you create systems in your business particular? Like I said, there's no step 1, 2, 3 that you can follow, but there are a few things to keep in mind when deciding whether you should systemize or not. The first thing is that if something is taking up a lot of your time that isn't equally producing the result that is worth the time that you're putting in, look for a way to systemize it. Are there people out there that can do it more efficiently than you and, well, better than you? If so, systemize it. Is there something that you hate doing within your business that you dread every time you have to do it? If so, outsource it. And finally, are there things that you know can be done more efficiently or you're not doing them efficiently enough? If so, find a way to outsource them. A good trick that Naval Ravikant actually said, I think in one of his tweets probably years ago, is that when he started off as an entrepreneur, if there was a task that needed doing that didn't produce the result that's worth an hour of his time, he would outsource it to someone else. For example, if he valued his time at like $500 an hour, let's say, and he had to do some admin for his business, and he knew that the admin wasn't worth $500 an hour, he wouldn't do it. Or more importantly, if he could find someone else that could do the work for him that he could pay less than $500 an hour for, he would pass it on to them. Because getting in this mindset of doing this will allow you to only focus on the things that matter and push away the things that don't. And the next thing that you're going to need to do to get to your first $10,000 is to use case studies that you obtain to get to your first $1,000 and $5,000. Because by now you should have a reasonable size arsenal of case studies and proof that you know what you're doing, and people love case studies and proof that they know that you can actually provide the result to them. This is why any product or service that you see, any new game, any new movie out there will have some kind of review plastered on it, because as soon as someone sees a review, they automatically trust that thing. It's why reviews on Amazon are a thing. It's why Trustpilot's a thing. It's why Yelp is a thing, because people love to see reviews and proof that it works before they actually go and buy the thing. And the more reputable and relatable the review is that you are showing, the more likely the person will actually buy the service that you're offering. The next step to get to your first $10,000 is to position yourself as a professional in whatever you are trying to sell. Now, this doesn't mean you have to start making TikToks and do dances whilst talking about how good you are at that thing. It means that you just have to provide some kind of case study, not from someone else, but that you know what you're talking about. And a lot about getting to your first $10,000 is actually providing more value than you're asking for in return. This is why a lot of the greats post a lot on Twitter. They post YouTube videos. A lot of people that are selling services will post YouTube videos teaching how to do the service or produce the same result for free, because then people watch those YouTube videos, then trust the person that is then selling the service, and then buy the actual service themselves. Because authority, especially social authority, is very, very important. Let's say, for example, you had a choice to eat at 2 restaurants, right? One of them was owned by Gordon Ramsay, and you were getting food cooked by Gordon Ramsay, and the other one you were getting food cooked by a chef not well known, but he has like 10 more Michelin stars than Gordon Ramsay, and he has like much better reviews, let's say. You would probably still eat at the restaurant that is managed and is cooked by Gordon Ramsay because of the social proof that he has behind him. And this goes for like any industry, right? The person with more social proof and credibility will get the job. They will get the work to them, and you lose nothing for building up your authority. If anything, you're just opening up yourself to more income streams, right? So yeah, something you'll be missing out on if you didn't take advantage of. And the last thing I would push for you to do to get to that first $10,000 a month is to really utilize leverage. If you don't know what leverage is, it's essentially utilizing something that already exists to further your own cause. And now thousands and thousands of companies do this. Let's just take Amazon FBA, for example, a business model where you sell products on Amazon. You are leveraging Amazon as a marketplace already there to make money off it. You didn't create Amazon, you didn't create the products, you're just the middleman that buys and sells them. You are using leverage to the absolute maximum there. And leverage is everywhere you look. You just have to find out a way to actually utilize it or use it to your advantage. Because again, this is working smart over working hard. You're just using things that already exist. So in summary, to get from your first $5,000 to your first $10,000, do the following. Start introducing systems into your business, software, people, or anything that helps the process run smoother. Utilize testimonials and case studies, position yourself as the expert, and use leverage wherever you can find it. And that is it, ladies and gents. That is how to get to your first $10,000. Probably the longest video that you'll ever see me make, but I think it's well worth being long. And if you've got any questions, let me know, but there's much more content where this is coming from, especially over on my Instagram, which is where I would very much push you, because I'm like leaving nuggets like this all over the place. This is basically a big nugget that I left that I then formed into a video. So if you want more stuff like this as an early bird, go over to my Instagram, which I'll leave a link down below in the description. And cheers, I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.